Hi guys, welcome to this step-by-step tutorial about how to use our objects fader. This is using Unity 5, but obviously it works pretty well with Unity 4. What we have here, this is a standard very simple setup created with the prototyping asset that comes with Unity 5. So all I've done is to just throw something in the scene, simulating any situation that you might actually have. We have Ethan here, the Unity third-person controller implemented in the game, and here we have a problem, right? As you can see, Ethan goes around, but we have something that is in the way, and it's not looking nice, right? Because obstacles are in the way, and playing this, let's say that it's not nice. Okay, so here comes our tiny script into play. So first off, what you have to do, import it. So let's see, sorry, where do I have it? Here. So let's import it. Obviously you can import this from wherever you have the package. Let's import it. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Now you need to get to the camera that you have on the level and add our component. Now we have two different components in the system, right? If you here start typing just fade, you can see you have two different components. Now there is a reason for this. Fade obstructors is a component that raycasts to see if there is anything in between the player and the camera. The volumetric one uses trigger, a capsule, or multiple capsules. That's depending on the setup. We're going to see this in a moment. Now, why we have two different approaches? Because obviously the volumetric one is the cheapest from a performance point of view, but if you have a pretty busy level with really a lot of colliders and all, you don't really want to add more, right? So if you have very busy level with hundreds of colliders already, don't use the volumetric, go for raycasting. Okay, now we're going to see the two of them anyway, because the parameters are a bit different, obviously. Let's start with the raycast component. This is the raycast component now we added to the camera. As you can see, there are a few parameters here. So now we have ignore triggers. This is pretty handy. Usually we do not want to take triggers into account, right? We might have volumes for audio effects and all made through triggers, so you don't really want to try to take triggers into account when parsing the environment, right? So usually checked is the standard setup unless you have some special need. Fade color, this one is basically the amount of color, the amount of transparency that you want to put on the object, obviously here with the alpha, and the color as well. You might want to have a different shade of transparency. We're going to see this in a moment. The player transform. Now, if you actually have the player tagged like this, using the player tag, you don't even need to set that up. Okay, so player transform, you can just ignore it. Otherwise, if it's not tagged as player like that, you better fill this dragging and dropping the player transform in. Another reason for having the player transform here is that you might want to point your camera not exactly at the pivot of the player, but you might want a player target to point at in the player, like the head or something else that you want to use as a focus for for the raycast operation. In that case, you actually have to obviously drag and drop your transform in here. So now the raycast offset. Raycast offset is an offset that is added to the distance between the camera and the target object, because you don't really all the time want to raycast exactly on the target, because that might have an odd effect, might affect colliders and objects that are nearby but are not really occluding, right? So a little offset is okay. Alpha meter, I found that it's pretty good. And anyway, when you run it, you have a visual of how this offset is taken into account. And the player tag, obviously, here, which means that in case you have a different tag and you can select it here and again ignore the player transform up there. So what else to do? Nothing, actually. As it is now, it will just work. Let's give it a try. Run it. Now, it's not really visible, the ray, because it's white. The ray is casted in the shade of the color that you select for the fading. So here we go, this is blue. If I use white, it's not really evident where it is, but that's the ray there. Okay. And the offset, as you can see, okay, so again, half a meter, it's okay. Now it's exactly on the floor, so maybe that you want to have a higher target here, but it works like a charm, even just with these parameters. So let's see now what happens running around with our Ethan here. Here we go. As you can see now, Ethan runs around, and as soon as it is occluded, whatever is the obstacle, it gets out of the way. It becomes invisible. Well, almost invisible, right? Transparent, so you have a shade of it, right? And now again, you might want to highlight in a different way the obstacle that you are actually shading out, right? So like yellow here. That is more visible, depending on the setup you have, right? And you can have multiple of these. So I might want to have one that shades stuff in I don't know, blue. Let's use blue. Okay, so now obviously if you let everything shaded in yellow and everything shaded in blue, you're gonna have a conflict. So let's say that I have the default layer shaded in yellow and my layer 1 shaded in blue, and let's put this and this in my layer 1. Okay, so that we can see this at work. Okay, now here I have the standard yellowish. Now if I go behind this one, which is my layer 1, as you can see, it's bluish. And this is pretty much all about this script, how to use it. This is the raycast version of it, obviously. Nothing much to see here. That's it. Pretty straightforward. So now let's remove these components and let's give a try to the volumetric one. So volumetric one is a little bit more complex from a parameter standpoint. Here we have the common parameters we saw already, so I'm not gonna spend time on these, but the two here are quite important to be understood. So common volume and common radius, this comes into play if we have multiple of these fade by volume scripts on the camera. Okay, so let's add another one like right away to understand how this works. As you can see, if I have one common value, if I drag the radius, also the other one it's updating, right? Because I have one capsule collider that will be added to the object to detect the obstacle. So what you are going to get here as a setup is something like this. You want to have two different shades for two different kind of object, maybe, right? So we are going to have the default layer here, just to make it clear, and my layer 1 in here. So you're going to have two different layer. When I run this, as you can see, I have now a capsule collider that has been added to the camera. That's why we have a rigid body that has been added as well. Performance wise, if you have a collider, you need a rigid body also, because otherwise it sometimes doesn't work depending on what the obstacle is. And at this point, what we have here is exactly the same functionality, okay, but this works using a capsule collider, which is a trigger in this case, right? And that's pretty much it. But I can decide that I want multiple colliders, and each one must have its own radius for some reason. Now that's a very edge case, but in that case you can uncheck common volume. As you can see, all the components automatically split, and at this point you have a different radius. So I might want to have the red one with a 1 meter radius, and we leave this like this. Let's move the offset. Well, this to make it visible, and let's have the volume offset of this one going to 0, so that it's more visually evident, and is shorter so that we can actually see them. Here we go. And the Ethan's script has just detected the trigger on top of it. Right. Okay, so let's tell Ethan to stand up. Okay. There's a secondary effect, as you can see, with that script that comes with Ethan, that detects something too close Okay, anyway. So, as you can see now, we have two different colliders that take care of the very same thing. So if we run this, obviously we have a different approach, two different triggers taking care of the detection, but anyway, the final result is exactly the same. Obviously, as you can see here, the triggers that are in between might collide with more objects that you would like to collide. So let's usually keep this with its standard behavior, so just one capsule collider in a pretty clean environment, and this will work just like a charm. But we have the two behavior here, so that you can actually decide which one is the best approach for you. Again, nothing else to say. These are basically extension to the editor itself. There is nothing to do by code. Yeah, well, by code you might want to enable or disable them, but I don't know. I don't really see any situation in which you want to actually control these scripts by code, right? So I'm not going there at all. The script has not been designed to be commandeered by code. But anyway, all the parameters that you see here on screen are available also in code, naturally. So you can modify layers, you can modify colors and all by code if you want to do that, but I don't really see any reason for such a thing. Anyway, so nothing else comes to mind to show about how to use these two scripts, so I think that that is pretty much it. Thank you for watching this presentation of version 301 of our fading scripts. Okay, thanks, bye.